The story begins with Geralt of Rivia the Witcher and Jaskier the Bard in a port town. Geralt refuses to eat a creature Jaskier has caught, deeming it disgusting. Geralt explains he's tracking the scent of an alamorax, a creature he's only seen in books, and tells Jaskier whose shoes aren't suited for rock climbing to wait on shore. Jaskier insists on being part of the action to compose a proper ballad claiming to be nimble. Geralt gives in and they pursue the alamorax. Upon finding the creature, Geralt corners it. Just as he prepares to kill it, a mermaid Escalate emerges pleading for mercy and claiming the alamorax means him no harm. Geralt retorts that he was hired by pearl divers to kill it as it's been attacking them. Escalate clarifies that the alamorax only eats oysters and the divers' precious trinkets, not humans. Its only crime is hunger. Geralt, convinced, spares the alamorax and accepts a ride from Escalate. Escalate brings Geralt to an underwater merpeople council. There her father King Oswald is discussing the escalating tensions with humans. A merperson Melusina passionately argues that humans have moved beyond simple pearl pillaging, they've hired a witcher to murder the alamorax. Another merperson states that if one sea creature is in danger they all are advocating for war. King Oswald dismisses their calls for immediate action, preferring to consider their proposals. Melusina then accuses the king of inaction because his daughter Escalate is in love with a human prince Agloval and the humans are exploiting this. Escalate proposes that her union with Agloval could bring peace. Her aunt Dehut agrees, suggesting a wedding instead of war, but the king angrily dismisses Melusina, calling her barren and accusing her of not understanding a mother's love, hinting at a deep unspoken family rift. Melusina retorts that while the king focuses on the past, she is concerned with the future of their people. Dehut then banishes Melusina, who willingly leaves but subtly reminds Dehut of who the king loved first, implying a past relationship between the king and Melusina. Back on shore, Jaskier is perplexed by Geralt's decision to let the alamorax go, believing in a simple good versus evil world. Geralt suggests the humans might be lying and the merpeople might be hiding something, emphasizing the moral ambiguity. Jaskier, frustrated, just wants Geralt to kill something. Later, Geralt and Jaskier are at a tavern where a group of rowdy locals mock Geralt for not killing the alamorax. The tavern owner, recognizing Jaskier, invites him to perform at the upcoming Imbake festival where the king will be present and promises good pay. Geralt is wary, reminding Jaskier of past incidents where Jaskier's performances led to trouble, a child's surprise. As Jaskier prepares to perform, he spots Essie Davin, a female bard. Geralt and Essie greet each other warmly, revealing they grew up together in Bremervoord, much to Jaskier's surprise, as he had always claimed to be from Oxenfurt. Essie teases Jaskier about his poetic license with his past, calling him a backwater bumpkin. A flashback shows them as children, with Essie defending a young Jaskier from bullies. She stood up for him against a boy named Zelist who was picking on Jaskier and throwing him into the water. Essie calls Zelist a bastard, revealing he was the king's illegitimate son and a real prick. Back in the present, King Oswald, Prince Agloval, and a now-grown commander Zelist arrive at the festival. Jaskier despises Zelist, calling him a sucker upper kicker downer. The locals complain about the 5 recent attacks on divers, blaming the merpeople but noting that the alamorax was a scapegoat. They criticize the royals for not retaliating due to Agloval's love for Escalate. Meanwhile, a pearl diver mocking a merperson finds a valuable pearl but is then speared by an unseen assailant. He is brought to the festival dying. He identifies his attackers as vodnik creatures associated with merpeople. The king is distraught, acknowledging they've run out of options. Zelist, seizing the opportunity, suggests hiring Geralt to find and kill the vodnik responsible, hoping to force the king's hand into declaring war. Geralt is reluctant, but Jaskier reminds him of their deal: take the first job that comes their way, codes for none, coin for all. Geralt curses, agreeing to take the job. Later, Geralt confronts Jaskier about hiding his Bremervoord origins, suggesting it's similar to his own secret about not being from Rivia. Jaskier admits he needed to leave Bremervoord to become who he wanted to be, calling the town filled with small-minded fools, but concedes Essie doesn't fit that description. He refers to Essie as being like a sister to him, though Jaskier's past ballads suggest a romantic connection. Geralt attempts to flirt with Essie, calling her eyes normal-sized, which she teases him for highlighting his awkwardness. Essie performs a song surprisingly good, and she sings Jaskier's own song, making it her own, much to his initial dismay but eventual admiration. The human crowd at the festival debates the merpeople situation, some advocating for war, believing the mermaid has bewitched Agloval. Princess Nispin of Maribor arrives seemingly as a potential human bride for Agloval, to the delight of some of the human court. Back at the palace, King Oswald and Prince Agloval discuss Agloval's forbidden love for Escalate. The king insists that for someone of their station, marriage is about duty to the kingdom, not just love. Agloval argues that his union could bring peace. Commander Zelist interjects, stating he's tried to convince Agloval to end his relationship with the mermaid. The king expresses a wish that Zelist were his full-blooded son. Geralt and Jaskier track the injured vodnik. Jaskier is shocked to learn Geralt let it go, but Geralt explains that the vodnik's iridescent blood will lead them to the others, confirming they travel in schools. Jaskier worries his fame as a bard has made their whereabouts too public, but Geralt suggests the alamorax or merpeople he spared might have spread the word. Essie appears, having followed them, explaining she wants to help prevent a war in her hometown. Geralt realizes they don't need a boat because at low tide they can walk to the vodnik's den. As Prince Agloval and Escalate meet at dawn on Founder's Rock, they reaffirm their love. Escalate admits she has to warn her people about the Witcher's presence. Meanwhile, Geralt, Jaskier and Essie reach Dragon's Fangs, a treacherous rock formation. Geralt confronts the injured Vodnik they've been tracking, demanding to know who hired it to attack the Pearl Divers. The Vodnik, fearing its employer, is hesitant, but Geralt intimidates it into revealing she as the culprit. Before it can name her, a magical blast from Commander Zelist kills the Vodnik. Zelist, having followed them, confronts Geralt and Jaskier, accusing Geralt of being soft on monsters and Jaskier of manipulating others. Jaskier tries to explain he's trying to prevent a war, but Zelist dismisses him. The rising tide forces Essie to guide them through the treacherous waters, showcasing her knowledge of the ocean. Back at the Merpeople's Council, Chinas reports the attack on the Vodnik, believing it confirms human aggression. Dahut, still distrustful of humans, is quick to believe this. Agloval is wounded and his father, King Usvelt, expresses concern. Geralt, Jaskier and Essie discuss the situation. Essie believes the truth lies with Agloval and Chinas, suggesting they meet at Founder's Rock. Geralt deduces that the human attacks are driven by greed for pearls, not sustenance, and that the Vodnik was hired by a she. He suspects the mermaid queen Dahut, thinking a parent would do anything to protect their child, especially given the history of human-mermaid conflict. Agloval and Chinas meet again. Agloval tries to propose marriage, asking Essie to translate. Chinas questions how their union can be real given their physical differences. Agloval proposes building her a tank, which offends Chinas, who declares she's a princess, not a pet. Essie mediates, pointing out that Agloval's solutions require sacrifice only from Chinas. Geralt interjects, steering the conversation back to the Vodnik attack. Chinas denies any knowledge of it, claiming her people were attacked by the king's men. Geralt reveals that the injured Vodnik he caught named she as its employer, suggesting someone wanted to prevent him from discovering the real killer. Chinas counters that she saw Geralt near Dragon's Fangs and inferred he was working with Zelist. Their argument escalates, revealing their differing perspectives and the deep-seated mistrust between their peoples. Chinas realizes she was too trusting of Agloval, stating she preferred when they only fucked instead of talked, indicating their romance is strained. Back in Bremervoord, Lachlan Davin, Essie's nephew, is conscripted into the armed forces despite being a child. Essie's protests are futile, as Zelist implies he'll be killed if war is declared. Meanwhile, Dahut, the mermaid queen, comforts a distraught Chinas. Dahut, revealing a past unrequited love with King Usvelt and resentment towards his former queen, confesses she's been working on a potion that will allow Chinas to take human form, believing this sacrifice will prove her loyalty to Agloval and bring peace. Chinas is hesitant, as it means giving up her identity and leaving her family. Dahut sings a song about sacrifice for love, encouraging Chinas. Geralt, Jaskier and Essie investigate the docks. Essie reveals her fluency in merpeople and her personal stake in the conflict due to her nephew's conscription. They examine the Pearl Diver's boat, noting the Vodnik spears are all lodged at the same angle from below, suggesting the attackers didn't board the ship. Geralt also finds a peridot necklace worn only by the mermaid royal family, proving a royal mermaid was involved. He initially suspects Queen Dahut. At the palace, King Usvelt confronts Agloval, who is distraught over Chinas' departure. Geralt, Jaskier and Essie arrive. Geralt declares he knows who killed the Pearl Divers, asserting it wasn't the Vodnik but a creature that took the shape of a kraken, a shape-shifting mermaid. He confirms the peridot necklace belongs to a royal. Agloval blames Chinas, but Geralt clarifies it wasn't her but the sea witch Melusina, Dahut's sister. Geralt reveals he knew she was the killer because she was present at the festival disguised as Princess Nispin, a detail Jaskier corroborated by recounting his tale of the Maribor blight, which indicated her fruit was conjured. Melusina, disguised as Princess Nispin, tries to flee. Zelist attempts to capture her but is transformed into a fish monster by Melusina's magic. The real Zelist and Agloval are horrified. Agloval, realizing he was duped, confronts Melusina, who reveals her true motive, revenge against King Usvelt for choosing Dahut over her and for having a child, Chinas, with him, something she couldn't. She admits to killing the divers to incite war, believing the king's stubbornness made it necessary. She wanted the royal family to lose everything just as she had. Agloval is disgusted, disowning his father and refusing to be part of his rule. The king, enraged by Agloval's defiance and the revelation of Melusina's treachery, orders Geralt, Jaskier, Essie and Agloval killed. Just as they are about to be executed, a humanized Chinas appears, having taken the potion from Dahut. She commands the Bremervoord fleet to stop the attack, stating the fighting ends now and promising a return to peace. King Usvelt apologizes to Agloval, seemingly having a change of heart. He reveals the potion can transform Chinas and supports their marriage. However, a smug King Usvelt later privately tells Geralt that Chinas will take a new identity to hide her past, ensuring the royal line continues, implying he still prioritizes appearances over genuine acceptance. The wedding is small and private. Agloval publicly declares his love for Chinas but then performs a ritual to transform her into a human. The king believes his legacy is secured. However, just as the transformation begins, Agloval reveals his deception. He doesn't want Chinas to hide her identity or their love for the sake of his father's ego. He refuses to rule as his father wishes and leaves, abandoning his claim to the throne and his father's legacy. King Usvelt is left alone, his reign over. Geralt and Jaskier reflect on the events. Essie praises Geralt's honor and courage. The final scene shows Agloval and Chinas, now both human, frolicking by the sea. Jaskier sings a ballad about their love and sacrifice. Geralt and Jaskier discuss love and destiny. Jaskier attempts to set up Geralt with Essie, but Geralt, though admitting Essie is wonderful, believes she doesn't understand him like someone who has lived as long as he has, hinting at Yennefer. Jaskier tries to convince Geralt to avoid Yennefer, and they decide to travel to the farthest corner of the continent, Caingorn, in the Dragon Mountains, a place where adventure awaits. And Yennefer notably does not. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.